that's exactly one of the main things I would say at the beginning is come up with figure out what your burn rate is. And if you don't know what a burn rate is, basically, like, what are you burning every month? And then what would that burn, like, what's the runway that the burn rate would provide you? I think it's very, very important to plan, take in, and one of the things is also, like, figure out.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustles. Time to take it to the next level. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Venture Hustles podcast. My name is Saj. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and I've got Jack. He's also one of the co-hosts of the show. How are we doing, man?
We are doing absolutely spectacular. How are you doing?
I am doing great. It is getting chilly in New York.
It most certainly is.
I feel like winter is coming. Winter is here. And I just got a bad feeling, man. I feel like this time
it's going to be crazy, right?
I feel like that, like when we do have winter storms, I feel like it's going to be some crazy.
I hope it's not. I'm not really a big fan of snow, so I hope not. But
you do the shoveling and the snow.
You got a little snow machine, a little snow blower.
Yeah,
a little snow blower. But even still, I don't like it.
It's still not fun, right?
Nah.
You know, I hope everybody has a good, as we're closing to the end of the year, everyone's enjoying the holidays and getting together with the families and whatnot. We've had a pretty good year. It's been pretty crazy in terms of the ups and downs and the roller coasters. And we got a brand new year coming up, man. So
we do.
So today we're going to be talking about kind of like, I guess, just what we just talked about is contingency plans, the importance of having a contingency plan in business, in your business.
And why you should have one.
And along with a couple of other things we want to talk about. This was a very good year for us to kind of go through that ourselves. And we've definitely mentioned this in the past, multiple different episodes, bits and pieces, because at Venture Hustles, if you haven't noticed, we're not fluff, we're not BS. Our goal is to be transparent with our audience and the people that are listening in and tuning in, and talk about our experiences. Like, we're not ever going to say anything that we haven't done or tested ourselves.
Correct.
From time to time, we'll talk about our opinions and feedback on certain things and occurrences that are happening in the industry.
Always try to be as straightforward as possible.
As straightforward as possible. Like, our hopefully our feedback is worth something to you. If it's not, then no problem.
Yeah, no problem. So today, like you had mentioned, contingency plans.
Yeah.
Why you should have one. Why it's important. So I guess let's kind of kick it off here. What is a contingency plan?
I mean, in a nutshell, the success and growth of your business depends on a safe, efficient, productive workspace, right? Any sort of like disaster that happens that you have to deal with that doesn't have a plan is just an opportunity for chaos. So
yeah, well put, well said.
Yeah, so I mean, I think at the end of the day, you need to prepare for a contingency plan. Yeah, and under any circumstance, if you've got a business that is doing well or you're starting out, you'll have to consider the financials, landscape, the environment, the economy, and plan accordingly. So I guess the contingency plan is really just a plan B or a backup and a plan in place in case whatever your plan A is.
Shit hits the fan.
Shit hits the fan. What do? You kind of lean into a plan that you've already planned for sure. Prepared, and hopefully that holds you off until you can get back on track and back on plan A.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, simply put, a contingency plan would be a plan B, where if things weren't going so well, you would follow this plan, right? So now that we've kind of outlined and defined what a contingency plan is, I guess let's get a little bit more into detail as to maybe how to put one together and why it's so important.
Yeah, I guess why should a business have a contingency plan, right? I think the last 2 years have been very, very the evidence to why it should be included in any sort of existing business or prominent business, or just up in
even when you're starting out.
Even if you're starting out. We got a global pandemic on our hands. We had a global pandemic. We still do in some sort of way, and we had dealt with multiple different types of financial sector crises in different verticals, and then the housing market, and just every single thing, loans, just every single thing that affects your day to day
are just going down.
Inflation, just gas, just every single thing matters, right? Because depending on the vertical that you're in, let's say you didn't have a plan for something like this, you would seriously
ultimately
struggle.
Fail.
Yeah. And it would hurt. I wouldn't say fail. I would just say it would struggle and it would hurt. And maybe all the work that you did in the years prior could go down.
Diminished.
Yeah. So why you should have a plan? I would say it's just always better to be prepared for worst case scenarios, and you just never know. Like, we live in a world full of uncertainty and doubt, and it comes down to how much extra are you willing to do to be prepared for if and I guess when things happen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like the famous saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And by developing and creating a contingency plan, that's ultimately what you're doing. And I think also when quote unquote shit starts to hits the fan, it's a lot more feasible and a lot more, although, and the reality will be you will be stressed out when this is happening. But if you have some sort of guide and some sort of plan that you've already created, that you can follow, it'll definitely take the stress off you, as the owner. But then also, some of the core members of the team that will be helping you execute on this for sure. And I think that's exactly kind of what happened when we were doing our thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're, that's a great point. I think especially if you're in a leadership type of role or a position in your company, whether that's someone that's in the high level management or mid level management, you're still in a leadership position. You're going to play a key role in things like this, right? I think if you're depends on how big the company is. Let's say you're a small company starting out, or you've been around for a year or two and just started seeing profits and gains. Chances are there's probably going to be a small group of people that are involved in decision making from a top level down. And I think it's important to think about these things, plan, make time for them, most importantly.
Without a doubt.
Even though, because what I was saying earlier was that if this happens, there's a big chance that it might never happen. But that's the thing. How much extra work are you willing to do? How far are you going to go down that mile for you to just be prepared,
Yes.
And this, it's just proof, right? Because what we've been dealing with, what we're currently dealing with this year, last year, just all of us, right, in general, in the country, in the world, is unprecedented. No one predicted something happening out of Wuhan and then starting a ripple effect into multiple sectors, and then just one after the other, going into debt of trillions of dollars because of all these stimulus packages and things like that, and then other
inflation's through the roof
dollar
now.
Value depreciating, like so many different things that affect your day to day you don't understand. Like, I feel like our kids and our grandkids would understand the ripple effects of what happened in the last 2 years down the path.
A lot of this stuff will be written in the textbooks. Yeah,
for sure. I guess how do you prepare for something like this? Like, how do you plan for a contingency? How do you prepare a contingency plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, considering the particular industry that you're in, but it's almost kind of like a code red in a sense where, a lot of times with a contingency plan, you're kind of like battening down the hatches. So some of the things you might want to consider is, what are your expenses? What can you cut almost immediately? And then what are some things that you can shave down that, let's say, you need, but you can kind of,
Great
cut them
point.
down
That's
a little
exactly
bit.
what I was going to say.
I think that's probably one of the first things. And then obviously the next things might be, from an employee standpoint, who, although again, it's unfortunate, but for the survival of the business, who can you, again, do away with? And then I think also with the leaders of the company, making sure everyone's on the same page, whether they constructed this plan with you or not, I don't know. But even if they haven't, having conversations with them so that they're on the same page, because when you're in the chaos, you need to have the core team on the same page so that they can delegate, keep the morale and keep the overall culture and, mood setting of the company stable, because if that's not stable during a time of crisis, it's going to make it that much harder to ultimately survive and kind of get through it,
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that that's exactly one of the main things I would say at the beginning is come up with figure out what your burn rate is. And if you don't know what a burn rate is, basically what are you burning every month, and then what would that burn, what's the runway that the burn rate would provide you? This is calculating income and expenses, and how much is your expenses, right?
Yeah, I mean, at a base level, right? And again, even for those that don't know what burn rate means, even the way you had mentioned, what are the expenses every month that are coming in without fail, no matter what happens?
Yeah, I mean, it'll average out, but at the end of the day, you have to calculate fixed expenses, recurring expenses, month to month, meaning, let's say the pandemic hit 2020 and January, your company is making, let's say, $1 million a year. That, let's say, let's say roughly you're making $100,000 a month, right? And your burn rate is essentially, let's say, $60,000 or $70,000, right? Let's say your burn rate includes everything, right? Is $60,000 or let's say $70,000 a month. You're burning close to about $800,000 plus in the whole year, and your company is just, let's say, generated revenue of $1.2 million.
Right, and you're taking home 360.
You're taking home 360. Now here's the thing. When the pandemic hits in January, and that is your burn rate, let's say $70,000 a month, and you're getting to the point where your income is diminishing because of the economy. Your customers can't pay. People are going through hardships, and then there's a tragedy happening everywhere, and your burn rate is still at $70,000. That means you run out in the next year. Let's say you go through that cycle. Even in that year, in 2020, let's say by 6 months in, you are no longer bringing in that $100K a month. Maybe that's looking like $50K now. But your burn rate is still something that you're going to have to pay to keep the lights on, to pay everyone's salaries. But guess what? Your intake has significantly diminished. So what do you do? So that's where you plan for a contingency. Figure out what that burn rate is. Figure out, in any circumstance, if we deal with some sort of a global tragedy or personal tragedy, whatever it is, how can you still be efficient and not go under, and how can you survive and keep things afloat for a certain time period? So think about, I would say, contingency plan would be to start breaking things down based on, all right, now maybe I need to bring my burn rate down to 30,000 or 40,000, because if I'm only bringing in $50,000 revenue every month, then we're still up, and at the end of the day, that'll keep us till afloat for the end of the year, and we'll still be up a little bit. We're not going to be in the red, and it'll give us time to figure out what to do next, and it'll buy you more time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's
sure.
one plan, I would say. And then 100% everything else that you said, which is figuring out the essential, and of course, for lack of a better word, essential, non-essential employees and team members.
Yeah, and I think another thing to also to mention, which I think you had done a great job with, is just overall financial planning. Even when you're in a place where you are doing well, your burn rate's 70 and you're bringing in 100 or you're bringing in 200. You always want to have some money set aside so that, let's say 1, 2, 3 months, even when you have brought down your burn rate to $30,000-$40,000 a month, and let's say that month, from an income standpoint, you brought in 10K. You got a lot of ground to cover. So now you can kind of go into that safety net that you've put together when you're doing well to be able to keep the ship afloat, essentially. And again, it gives you even more time to be able to figure out what to do, whether that's a pivot, whether you have to kind of keep going strong, or maybe just ride out the wave.
100%. I think it's just, at the end of the day, it's the whole plan is to buy you time for you to kind of get afloat and get your shit together. But I think that's one of the most important things, man. I think people need to figure out these financial numbers. To me, also, they were a lot of this was foreign, right? But figuring out what your burn rate is, figuring out what your runway is, right? Figuring out Runway is basically how many months can you last with the current burn rate
Yes.
based on your company balance sheet, you know?
Now, do you calculate that? This is a good question. Do you calculate that burn rate based on if you didn't have any additional income coming in every month?
No, your burn rate is your burn rate.
No. I'm saying the road.
The runway?
Yeah, the runway.
The runway is supposed to basically say that, okay, I've got, let's say, $500,000 in my bank, in the company bank, and this only and let's say our burn rate is $50,000
Okay.
a month. That lasts us 10 months. That's our burn rate. It's not really counting for anything else additional in a way.
Okay.
Like at current day.
So I'm saying, well, I guess you're under the assumption that you're not bringing any other money in.
Yeah,
I just wanted to
that's the
clarify
whole thing.
that.
If you've got a pandemic, if you've got a
Right.
tragedy, and nothing is coming in, that's essentially,
It'd
of
be
course,
20 months though, wouldn't it? Not 10. At 50.
no, $50,000 burn rate. That's times 10. That's 500,000. That's 10 months. I'd be 20.
Yeah, but you said $1 million.
No, I
thought.
said 500.
Oh,
Right now, I
okay.
said 500.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's 10 months.
10 months of burn rate,
months.
yeah.
If we make no money, we're and we're not at least breaking even from that 50,000, we're out. You know?
Yeah.
If you're making 50,000, your burn rate is basically exactly the same because that's exactly what's in your bank account.
You're breaking even.
Yeah, you're breaking even.
You're breaking even.
That's exactly right.
And that's kind of, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously we're in 2022 now, but we saw a lot of that in 2020 with a lot of companies shutting down, your mom and pops, you know, which is unfortunate, but you know, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to kind of do this episode, because developing a plan B is so important. And, you know, for a while, for me personally, I was under the assumption, I remember because we've done so many projects together, that I was like, yeah, we can think about it, but like, I don't really want to think about it. You know what I mean? And you're like, no, like, let's do it. Like, we have to do it. I was like, okay, fine. And then we actually wind up executing on the contingency plan.
100%.
You know?
I think it's very, very important to plan, take in, and one of the things is also like figure out. Like Jack was instrumental to a lot of our, like me and you worked together so much on a lot of the things in terms of preparing for a contingency plan and the fallout and everything else. For us, the pandemic year was one of our best years. Believe it or not, that was really, really weird to say, but the peak pandemic was one of our best financial years. But you have to plan for the worst because there are ripple effects of the pandemic and everything else that happens. So we did plan for it, and we're, you know, we've hopefully we're making it out. That's the plan, you know.
Yeah.
But man, I'm seeing things like 40 or 50% of restaurants right now cannot make rent.
Yeah.
For like 2-3 months. It's looking bad. Like and you know, we talked about this. The recession's here. When Meta, Facebook lays off
Amazon
10, 20, 30, 40,000 employees, that's scary to me. And we were talking about this.
It's
we were talking
real.
about this. It's real. You know? And these are like mega companies. This is like, you know, Zuckerberg going into a conference meeting and just saying, hey, this is on me. I take responsibility. I've laid all these people off. Like, I mean, we're not talking about 100 layoffs. We're not talking about 200 people. We're talking about like thousands, man. A small town, like just been laid off. It's kind of rough.
You know what the silver lining to that is, though?
What?
I was reading something the other day, and you know, the silver lining might be, you know, for a company, a smaller company, let's say someone not like Meta, you know, the talent pool that's going to be available will be much higher or much better.
Where?
For hiring, I'm saying, for all these people getting laid off, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the age of people being able to work from home. So let's say 1,000, 2,000, however many people got laid off from Meta, the talent pool now is going to be a lot better, because it might not necessarily mean that the people were bad, because they weren't, but the market is the market, you know, and they got laid off.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to see it. Yeah, I can see. I
read an article. I was like, oh, okay, fair.
But I mean, but that's the thing, though. Getting laid off for Meta in this particular case it was not a profitable move for them. Like, I mean, this was not a talent pool move. This was purely a, hey, we're gonna freaking die if we don't do something like this.
No, I'm saying the people that got laid off, though, exactly what you just kind of mentioned, where it's not like they were bad employees or bad people. It
was just circumstantial.
Exactly. So now those people are looking for a job now.
Now, Twitter is a different story, right? Ever since the
Much
Musk
different.
takeover, the layoffs seemed to be more strategic and more of like, we need to take out the people that just suck.
Yes.
He's like, the other day, Elon Musk fired somebody over a tweet. The man tweeted, yes.
I mean,
this engineer was an idiot, first of all.
Yeah.
Whoever that guy was, he's an absolute bot.
Literal bot?
David, if you can pull up that tweet from Elon Musk and then engineer that interaction and just put it somewhere near my face, it's super funny. The engineer basically said something like, hey, how about this suggestion? Twitter, Elon tweeted first saying,
we need to work on the platform.
We need to work on the platform. Something's wrong with the algorithm, blah, blah, blah. The engineer, one of Twitter's current employees, well, then current, basically tweeted back to Elon publicly in a public domain saying, yeah, this is not true. I have been working on the Android version of this for years. And I can tell you that it was something to do with the speed and the load time. I remember that. And then Elon said, yeah, can you give me the technical breakdown of this, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody else tweeted to Elon saying, yo, well, not just to Elon, but tweeted to, like, it was like a thread tweet, said more like, why are you doing this publicly? Doesn't make any sense. And then this person needs to be fired. And then Elon responded back saying he's been fired. All within like
20 minutes or something. Minutes.
That's the thing. It just shows you the complete disarray. But like what's happening with Twitter is more strategic and more of like for the business. Cleaning house. But what happened at
Twitter didn't have a contingency plan. Do you think they did?
No. But you know what is different though, man, for big corporations like that? I think the contingency plan, and it's a lot more intricate and detailed. Like we're nowhere near Twitter, and it's like, you know, that it just at the end of the day, I think there's levels to this shit.
For sure.
You know, there's levels to this shit. And at the end of the day, like we're only focused on X, Y, and Z. They've got A, B, C, D, like everything else. So I think it's, you know, but it goes without saying. I think another thing is one of the things that we have experimented with was remote hires. And that panned out to be a really good decision for us because that let us experiment with a bigger talent pool, more freedom, more flexibility, and flexible pay. And with that helped our like bottom line. And at the end of the day, that's something you should explore. I would say that one of the tips I would say in terms of how to prep when it comes down to your finances and breakdown is alternatives. Healthy alternatives, not only just from a talent pool team perspective, but also I'm using this software. I can find a cheaper version here or free, or it's okay. I'll lose these perks, but I'm not paying $5,000 in a year extra. So start evaluating all of your current processes and then break them down and figure out what the alternatives are where you can still get the same job done. Because this happened to us. We lose the plot when we get too big, and we stop thinking and counting of all the little things that add up.
Yes.
And you saw me go through a whole cycle with the team where we took out all these things and we swapped things out.
Oh yeah.
That were cheaper for us and cleaned house, and it just made sense, you know. And it was just part of the contingency plan. Not all contingency planning is financial related, is economy related. You also have to think about from a marketing perspective. What can you do as an alternative route in case your current strategies are not working? What if your branding or your value prop of what you're selling is related to money? Then in a global pandemic, might
not be the best idea.
It might not be the idea. So you might want to think about how do I reposition myself
and the brand.
Add the brand. Now it's coming down more of like, shit, my contingency plan looks like a pivot. So then you might have to pivot. So really more so you need to kind of sit down with the people that you trust on your team, come up with high-level strategic sessions and figure out what can we do if shit hits the fan? What can we do if the industry or the vertical that we're in can no longer serve us in this current climate, this current economy? What are your options?
Yes. What are my options? Plan B, and then alternatives. You know, it's like, okay, if this doesn't go, now again, that doesn't mean sit there for hours and hours on end trying to think of every single potential possibility that could potentially happen.
Yeah,
that's not what that means.
Yep.
But be obviously realistic and put together plans so that if and when it happens, You know where to go. You
Yep.
know where to look. And then you can talk with the team, start implementing these things, and then again, try to make your way back on course, on track.
100%. There's just many components that I think it all obviously all depends on the vertical that you're in and everything. So I think it's important to just think about it and plan for it.
You'll be happy that you did
Yeah.
if you know, if and when it happens, but you'll be very upset that you didn't if it happens.
Yeah, it could potentially end your career, your life, your business, your life's work. It could, just from, hopefully it never happens to any of y'all, and hopefully everybody makes it out of the rough times and the economy and everything that we go through.
Yeah.
It's a very, very tough time to be a business owner now because of the world that we live in.
Yes.
But hopefully anyone that's out there that's doing this, I wish everybody the best, and
For sure, absolutely.
keep
on going, man.
keep on going.
Or
and-
woman.
Or woman. Yeah.
Keep on going.
I
Keep
would
on
just
going.
say that if you're out there and you're surviving, you're already winning half the battle.
Yep.
And just everything else is more of like just to make sure that you keep winning.
Yes.
That's really it. Any final thoughts?
No, I think that hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's gonna be my motto for this episode. And I guess as we wrap up, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share, or you've let the audience know everything that is in Saj's mind?
May the odds forever be in your favor.
May the odds forever be in your favor.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Well, Venture Hustle community, we appreciate you as always. You can find us Apple Podcast, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere you can find content, podcast, audio or video, you will find us. And no matter where you are, we hope you are enjoying the day or night. Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustles. Time to take it to the next level. Let's go.